We're like so awesome.
Very likely live. So Torsten, you go.
We go. Okay, so this morning we started off a conversation with the four of us, and needless to say, it was a little sticky and not tons of space. And we kind of like talked a lot of it out, but it was basically about creating and choosing, or actually it was more about not choosing. And so the conversation was actually around us creating together, and a few of us, me, not totally choosing. But in the conversation, it really came out that we do want to create together, and what would it take energetically for us to kind of make it work for all of us. And so that's kind of where we got to, or so.
Well, and for those of you watching, those of you that are keeping track of us, basically a lot changed this week. Like I got clear on what was really going to work for me in terms of having John live with me, and I was like, you can't live with me. We went through a big like thing. Are we, we still want to create together, but we don't actually know what that looks like, and you need to stay on the island because that's working better for me, for you to be far away.
Until it didn't.
You're really good at arm's length. That's where you should be.
Hey, listen, you're in the other room right now. That's
It's still arm's length.
That's a good 2 arms length.
personally, like the two of us for sure got really a lot more clear on like what's actually going to work for now, and what it changed was really dynamic. Like, John came back to this house, yesterday, and he's totally different and I'm totally different, and the space that we're able to create from is totally different, but we know that he's not going to be creating the house with us in the way that he was going to be at the moment. So that's a huge change. And then I don't know, something really shifted in like what we were looking, like the house search really shifted for me too. I'm like, so we've just been really like, there's a whole conversation going on now about like, when you create together, sort of like when you create together, what's required.
Yeah, and talking about like, allowing each other to be, even if that's not actually creating for the greater, but having each other's backs and being there and allowing someone to, like giving them the space to destroy their future, decay their future, and then sometimes doing what Christel does to me where she sits on top of me. Even though I'm in the middle of it and I haven't come to her yet, she'll just sit on top of me, but still in the way of giving space. So, this like that is actually a beautiful thing that we do have together, and that we do actually give each other no matter what. And that was what's been one of the things that's been going on this weekend, this week, but this weekend too, where there was this space of allowance of, being pissy or just being done with something, and having that space to just be with that and see what shows up, and yet always being there for anybody to come and chat as well and ask a question or say like, okay, fuck, I need help.
And also what's interesting is that right now I'm not at home and I'm somewhere else, and it's also interesting, well, I'm usually the one that's home, so that's
I know, it's so backwards.
That's one thing.
There's nobody bringing out the recycling. I just want to point out.
We actually so did miss it this week. Last week, I was aware of it, but I couldn't take it out. And this week, we totally missed it completely.
Which I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I know.
So what's interesting with that, though, is also, even though I'm not at the house, I'm also aware of what's going on. And so it is being aware of that energy. And because we do create together and we are connected in that way, that there are times where you're like, realize that something has changed. It's not always totally clear what that particular thing is, but that there is a shift of some sort. So that's also quite interesting that I find as well.
Wait, did you name this episode WTF?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Apparently Christel didn't tell us that that's what she did.
I don't don't tell them everything.
No. That's awesome.
Well, I don't know about you guys. This past week seemed like months. There's been so much packed into these few days. What I really learned, and I'm grateful for everything that you guys are to me, is that at first I looked at it as like, I chose, and then it didn't create, or I chose not to create. And, there's this kind of a letdown. And then I really got that, it's not about the outcome. And I don't know if anyone could have really taught me this. I've been told again and again and again, it's about the choice. It's not about the outcome. It's not about linearity, and it's not about being attached to something. And I really got a really clear sense of it beyond what anybody could have cognitized and explained to me. So what I'm getting is that through this choice and through the choice again, and being really uncomfortable and being fucked up and being all of that, is that I gained an awareness of like, yeah, I can't be hanging on to an outcome or solidifying that. It's, in fact, when I chose that and asked for a greater future, right now I have a knowing that in this past week that I've created a greater future for myself. And it doesn't have to have everybody attached in a certain way just because we started out going, this is what it's supposed to look like, or this is what it's going to look like now. And that's been the greatest gift to me, because that's something that has completely shifted and will continue again. And it's set a ball rolling of what it is when you say it's about the choice, it's about choosing. It's not about the creating necessarily. Like, it's not about being attached to the creation. That's what I got. So thank you.
Thank you. It's
Cool.
actually really cool what you've chosen, John.
Yeah.
And
I mean, because really, like anybody else, almost, where, the girl you're seeing says, hey, you're not living with me. Basically, you're done. Right. That would be the assumption. And you have a real tenacity for just staying present with whatever it is, however it's changing, and that's a massive, massive, massive gift to me and to us. So thank you. And, I was we had a conversation before this. So some of this we've already all talked about, which is why we're sort of like, what do we talk about now? But I was looking at this whole creating together thing. And right before this, I was sort of bringing up, hey, the big change I went through in this last week, one of them is like, I'm not dragging people anymore. I've had this whole life where I've spent a lot of time and effort trying to drag people into possibility, which is not kind. For them. But it's just what I've always done. Like, I know how to do it. I'm really good at it. I'll just grab you by the hair and, and so in the last week for me, like, I fired myself. Like, I'm not going to do that anymore. And so I've noticed that every time I make a big change like that, it opens up a whole different conversation with the people around me of like, look, I'm not doing this anymore. So, which means that whatever was moving forward and the way it was moving forward before is going to be moving forward differently. And if you guys want to be a part of that, cool. And if you don't, cool. And I was just thinking, like, while John was talking, like, that's something that's really different that we are for each other, even in having that conversation, is the allowance for where every one of us is at. Because it's never when you're creating with a group that you're all going to be moving at the same pace, at the same speed, on the same. It's that maybe energetically you're similar. Energetically, we're all going for the same target. And we're coming at it in, 25 different ways. I don't know. And there's something else there, but I was just looking at like the gift.
No, I get it. It's it's also kind of similar to what we were talking about with the house, where, for a while we were figuring out what it was that we really wanted, and that was working to go see different houses. And it got us that energy of congruency of what is our ask. And then it shifted. You're like, this is fucking stupid. Why are we doing this? And but you didn't say it as much. But it was
I became a woman in that moment. I'm like, you're dumb.
But that's also where I'm like, okay, she's just gonna need some space. Like, you know, and I can sit on top of Christel, and I might use that tactic one of these days. But but it's also like allowing each other the space to actually be in that and be like, this is fucking stupid. I don't know why we're doing it. And I mean, I tried to bring it up a couple times. Look at this and look at this. And it was like, bam. And it was like flat and fuck you. And I'm like, okay. And I kind of still like this. And what do you think here? You know, but,
shut up.
But, exactly. But also having this space for Christel to kind of just be whatever she's choosing to be, no matter what. And it's like, I'm so grateful because that's a space that you've had, like you've all had for me. You know, and I'm still looking at like, why the fuck am I not choosing? Like it's frustrates me beyond anything in my entire life why I'm not choosing to create when that's what I do. Like if I want something, I choose it and I have it. It's that simple. And for months, I've been not choosing things, which is weird. And for such a long period of time, it's really sticking me. And yet I haven't chosen to choose something different. So I'm still in it. And having that space, like having amazing people in my world, like, and, you know, you guys, and also like Heather Nichols too, like she asked me a month ago, you know, anytime you want facilitation. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. And not now. You know, and then I spoke to her yesterday about it and it was different. And I'm like, yeah, okay, now I want to talk about it. So there's things shifting and moving. And it's just having that, like having people in your world that have your back no matter what. And you get to be, you get to be whatever you're choosing, whether that's not choosing anything or, you know, choosing change like John did this last week, where every day you're like 5 universes further, like no matter what shows up, we get to be there. We get to be a part of that.
And I'm realizing as we're talking about this today, like I'm realizing that what that consistently invites me to, you know, if I'm on the other side of it, maybe I'm doing all the work in a situation and I'm the one being the mover or whatever. But what that invites me to do when we actually have a conversation about it is really get vulnerable about what's not working for me, allow you to be vulnerable with what's going on, and then really, because that seems to open up this different space of going, okay, well, what does work right now? Like, do I actually have a point of view about doing it all in this particular? I actually have no point of view about that. What was missing, I guess, what I'm seeing is like that communication about it, or that I don't even know the words, the inclusion of your world, or, you know, the getting of what's going on. Because I get it, like, we're all going to have these times where you're higher functioning than I am in this 10 seconds, or Torsten is higher functioning.
And it really is 10 seconds.
and also to get out of my projections and expectations of what I've decided that needs to show up as, you know, what all creating together means, what that looks like, what that should be like, as opposed to just what it is. Okay, so this is what it is, like.
And I am really getting too that it's like every moment we actually try to define this, we get confronted by it because it's not definable and it's inconceivable and it's not something that actually fits into anything. It is so totally different that it's like the moment we conclude anything, the moment there's any kind of solidity or whatever, like, boom, it's in your face.
Yeah, and it's really what I realize or become aware of all the time is when we actually sit down, the four of us, and actually have a conversation, that's when everything shifts.
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah, so I'm so grateful we're doing this every week.
Yeah, so it actually allows the space, or because of the conversation and really looking at what isn't working and being an allowance of what isn't working, and then going, okay, so what does actually work for all of us? And it is having that conversation every week that allows us to choose something different all the time together, as well as what we're choosing individually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and it is really cool too what you were saying, Christel, about how like you're not always on the same wavelength, yet you're all heading in the same direction. And we really do. Like, you know, Torsten's not here, like you said, and he's so aware of like, you know, okay, shit's up at the house. Like there's lots of change going on. I don't know what it is because I haven't heard the words or I'm not there, but I get the energy of all of it. So it's like as we move forward and we change together, the waves are like different cycles and it looks different. And these conversations that we get to have, like where we actually make that commitment to every week get together and have these conversations, shit changes every single week, like to like in ways that are just wow. And we do really create new territory every single week because we haven't been this vulnerable. And last week we weren't as vulnerable as we were last week. And next week we'll be even more if I could talk, more vulnerable than we are this week. And like, we'll have grown that much more. And it's, I mean, like every time, a single time we have these conversations, I'm listening while having this conversation with you guys. And it is phenomenal what comes up and what we get to and what we get to look at. That it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I have any more words. It's just, wow. Like, I'm so grateful.
Well, I think, and part of that is the not defining of it. Like you literally don't have words because it's really not something you can put into words. It is that energy of what we create together and what we're changing and choosing and shifting constantly, right? And it's interesting because when I do try to define it, I'm like, I can't actually. Mm-hmm. It literally.
Like one of the things I think that's so powerful about what we're choosing is like, I know for me anyway, is like, I'm willing to not do, like, it's like, if something's not working, it's like, drop it. Like if the relationship's not working, let's stop. Like, do we want to create this or not? But always giving myself that choice of like, hey, if this isn't working, then let's not do it. Like, do we actually want to keep doing this? Do we want to keep choosing this? Like, oh yeah, we do. Which that's for me, another way of playing with like the choice in every 10 seconds. And then the other thing is not this is so interesting because there's two things going on for me. I'm giving myself the choice to not do it, but never not including you guys in it. So like last night I went and had a glass of wine with John and just blah, blah, blah about what was going on for me. Because there's a lot that's changing for me this week. And I was like, this is frustrating. But I more just needed to put words to it, like articulate what was going on so I could even come in with any sort of language with what was going on. But what I noticed was I didn't go to like, I don't want to move in with them. This isn't working. Like, I'm done with it. And even when with John and like, I can't move in. You can't move in with me. Like, that's not working. It didn't go to, and you're out of my life. It was just like, this particular way that we're creating right now needs to change. And so that has been a massive shift for me. Like,
yeah, because you go to question and possibilities still, even when you're like, okay, that's not working, but it's not an end point. It's actually a beginning point of, okay, now let's look at like, how does this need to change? Like, what would I like to create? What now? Like, what would I like to choose?
And also letting you guys in.
Yeah, that's big.
Because I didn't do that before.
Nope, me neither.
To like, hey, this is what's going on for me. I'm just going to lay it all out there. It's probably full of conclusions and full of shit and point of views, and it's occurring.
But the funny thing is, like, you tried to do that this morning and it wasn't actually full of conclusions or anything else. It was just what was up.
It's true. I'm always less fucked up than I think I am. But that's the gift of having you guys in my life, like of actually going, okay, because I would have literally, before I created this Pico universe in my head of like everything that I thought I was frustrated about, that I was probably wrong about, and just been like, oh, whatever, this isn't working, And so I know I keep belaboring that, and I think I'm just like, there's this something else entirely that we're creating by not rejecting ourselves and not rejecting each other, that goes beyond the house and the relationships and all of that I'm just so incredibly grateful for, and continues to change me. Like, So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's that piece of never, it's about not rejecting ourselves and each other. I think that's and like Karlina was kind of, the allowance of that. That is something for me that I've never done in this way before.
I have a sense none of us have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all uncharted territory, and like, yeah, wow, so incredibly amazing. And every week, like, we have these incredible conversations, and there is more congruency that shows up during these conversations with, the four of us, and we have no idea where it's going.
Well, for people who are just tuning in, I thought I'd try to give a 30-second synopsis. Okay, so there are these three friends who are really tight. They live in this awesome house in the British properties in West Van. I met Christel just under a year ago, and came upon this like really wondrous creation of like three friends, three roomies, and just living this like in what people would call like a really crazy life that doesn't make sense in all those conclusive ways. And I've been exposed to this, and the changes that are happening in my life are profound just by being around you, just by being witness to what you create, and also being involved and learning to make my own choices that are very different from what we consider the norm or what's sensible. And what I got out of this is that, that yes, it's, we all decided to chose to get house together to at least for a year. And then Christel and my relationship had some, I don't know, what do you call it? Yeah, stuff. And
Discoveries.
And then we chose differently. And then while this house creation was in process, and I was confronted with really choosing. There's no not choosing here. And I was faced with really potentially losing a relationship. Like this is kind of the significance of it in what we've been taught, is that when that happens, you're going to lose her or you've lost her, right? And I was not designed to go there. It's just like, well, I'm just not going to be living in the same room. And then it turned out into, I'm not even going to be living in the same house. And in fact, you get home back to the island, like staying away for a while. And
to be fair, I was done with the relationship the way it was.
Yeah.
I just wasn't you.
And what's cool is that, and I could have done what I thought was the right choice and like get into the house and shut up and just put your head down and live it, right? And then maybe
really in this house.
No, you can't do that.
No, but what I mean is that is what
that's the norm.
That's the norm. That's the thing that we're taught to do. Yeah. And I chose, I'm willing to give everything up in order for me to do what's true for me right now. And there is no right or wrong, right?
Add to that, because you started really looking at like what is true for you, like what is nurturing to you. Like, you have this incredible little place on the island where you have miles of view. You're right up in the mountains. Like, you actually started looking at what is true for you, not what you could do that would keep the relationship, according to what you decided would do that. Yes. And that is what changed everything.
It changed everything. This past week has been complete. Like, it again, chaos creation. And, it would have been easy for me to come to that this is a conclusion of some initiative. Like this is where it stops. And then life has to go on. And what I'm getting now every day, including the conversation that we're having, is that right now, everything is a starting point. Everything is a starting point. Even when we say this stops or this isn't working for me, that is not a stopping point. What I get is that when we choose that, then it gives us the space to go, what's the next thing? What are we choosing next? What do we demand? So that's something that's given me like a huge empowerment is too small a word. Like, this has profoundly changed the way I am approaching my life.
And I think that's a really cool piece, like, for you to bring here and for people to see too, where it's like, that is how we've been functioning for the last, I don't know, well, since we've chosen to not do any separation, like since we're not rejecting anything and anyone, it's that constant, I don't know what the opposite of rejection is. Inclusion. That's it. That's the word. That's exactly what you're looking at, John, where it's like, even when the relationship ended, like if it ended in this world, you guys would be done, but instead it's completely different. And that's what we do as roommates as well, every single time, where it's like, this doesn't work or that doesn't work. It's like, okay, cool. And then there's this space to actually see if you want to choose different. And, you know, Christel, you said it too, where it's like, I was done with this relationship. And it's like, yeah, you were completely done with the relationship as it was. But in this reality, that means the relationship is over. Whereas with us, that meant that, or with you guys, that meant that the relationship could take a different road, and it could have a different choice, and it could look different from that point forward, so long as you were both willing to choose.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool. And I think that's one of the big differences in what we're choosing, is nothing, like every ending is a beginning, like John said, like there is no end. It's just a constant 10-second choice. What would you like to choose now?
Oh man. So if you guys, like, I'm just aware of like people that might be watching this that are like, what can I start to incorporate like into my family dynamic or into my relationships that would create that? What would you say?
Well, we all use the Access tools, and it's like one of my favorite things to say to people who may or may not use Access is grab one tool and start, because we have so many tools that it gets really overwhelming. But, you know, I started with asking the question, how does it get any better than this? And it got better. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I had no tangible proof and nothing solid that things got better. I just knew energetically things got better. And I didn't know how to put that into words at that time. And then I added a second question and I asked that, and things showed up. And like the second question that I asked was, what would it take for blank to show up? And then like things would show up, and it's like, okay, that gave me more undeniable proof. But that's the one thing that I would say is just start with one, and then keep adding, keep using.
And to add to that too, like one of the things that I've been doing a lot lately is destroying and uncreating my relationships with everyone in my life. And that includes me. So, and so that is kind of what John was talking about, that creates a new beginning and a new place that you can choose from. And so I've been doing it with like people, things in my life, creations, all kinds of stuff, like pretty much everything. I'm just constantly doing that. And that just creates a lot of more space for me. And it's actually been something interesting that I have played with, and that's what I'm currently playing with a lot. So it's another thing that kind of creates a new beginning point as well.
John, what are you playing with? Can you put it into words?
Oh gosh, can you see it in my face? You know what there's so many things, and the one thing that just lit up in my mind right now is that the idea of being undefined. In this culture, in our upbringing, we are taught, okay, eye on the prize, and this is how it's going to look, and when you roadmap it and you stick to it, no matter what, you're going to get it, and you're going to be successful, and everybody's going to love you. And something about that does not ring true for me. There's this predictability of outcome that just does not work with me. When I know the destination and the roadmap, and I'm supposed to set off on it and just show up every day and do that thing I'm supposed to do, I can't think of anything that's just more boring than that. That's not to say I don't desire success, whatever that is called. I just desire the energy of whatever life I want to have. It doesn't have to have any kind of, in fact, I just don't want a roadmap at all. I want to take my own path and create it. And what I like about this is that, yes, we chose and we're choosing, and it could be easy to say, well, you 3 tight roomies are there, and now I'm on the outs, or, there's a separation. And it's not that. It's not even calling it anything. It's not even calling it former roomies or former roomies wannabes. It's just that we 4 of us got together and decided, you know what, we're like, you guys are all really cool, and I don't know what it is, but we're going to do something. We're just going to play. We're just going to play with life. And what our first creation, we started it and it sort of went sideways. And then what's really cool about that is that just the act, just that choice of going, you 4, like all 4 of us, we can do something. Just whatever, we'll do something, choose something, create something. And now I find myself in a place a week later where I go, oh my God, like my professional life is looking, my future is looking so different. My relationship with myself is looking so different. And the person who I was willing, she's not a position, and she's a person, Christel is a person I really adore and is such a blessing and gift in my life. I was willing to lose her in order to stay true to myself, whatever that meant. And what's cool is that if we can I don't even like calling it a definition of relationship, is that Christel I showed up to is different, and she says that I'm different, and whatever we're being with each other is beautiful. I mean, there's this incredible energy, and there's so much love. The sex is beautiful, and I can't imagine just not choosing this all the time. Like, our relationship ends every day, and it gets created anew every day, and that's so cool.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, like, for whoever's watching this, like, if you're looking at, recreating your relationships, your family, your friendships, it's like destroy and uncreate them, like, really, all the time. And also, like, I've been really actively playing with 2 things. Like, if I wasn't rejecting myself, what would I choose? And if I could fire all of my choices right now and bring back whatever I wanted, who or what would that be? Would I bring back anybody? And what that gives me an awareness of right away is instantly what works for me. I get an instant awareness of, like, oh, I either wouldn't bring back anybody, or yeah, I'd bring back these people, but I would change this. And then choose to follow that. And that has changed my life. That is changing my life probably faster, those 2 questions, than I was before, and I'm pretty fast. But also the being willing to lose everybody while including them. It's like, losing what was, because if it's not working, then it needs to go. Like, and going, okay, so what can we actually create now that does work? Like, what's not working and what does work? And inviting in that conversation.
So since we didn't do this at the beginning of getting together, will we now destroy and uncreate our relationship with each other, with everything, with all of our creations and all of the situations, and all of you guys out there?
Yes.
Everything that is right, wrong, good, bad, pot, online, shorts, boys, beyonds.
And if you're new to the clearing statement, which is what she just said, go to theclearingstatement.com and you'll get tons of information.
Yeah, you can read it there.
World-changing stuff.
But the cool thing is that even after we do these shows, we'll destroy and uncreate our relationship, and a whole new conversation starts to bloom. So it's really amazing, like that actually works. Yeah, it's really cool.
Cool.
And I like to, Natasha said creationships, which I think is a fun word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gary's talked about that before, where you want to be around people that you have creation points with and not connection points. And we're taught to look for the people that we have stuff in common with, or that we can connect over. We both like tennis. We both like movies, and so therefore we have stuff to connect about and talk about. He's like, you don't want to find people that you have connection points with. You want to find people that you have creation points with. Like, what can I create with this person? Can I create a future with these people? Can I create something greater with them? And if it's a yes,
Yeah.
then
Sorry, those connection points are really like the connection points are stagnant. They're solid. So yes, you both like tennis, but then the moment you blow out your knee and you're like, well, now I can't play tennis and now I don't like it, you actually lose that friend.
fucked.
Because you're fucked, because now you can't play tennis, and that's the one connection point you have. Whereas if it's a creation point, which is what you're looking at with the four of us, it's always a new creation, and there is nothing solid and there is nothing to define. There's simply just question to create with.
We don't even have the same taste in houses in common.
It's true.
Try that on for size.
I know, it's funny because Christel and we were looking for some furniture for a class. The chase.
I can
And
only
I'm like,
imagine what that looks
I
like.
know. And she's like, I like the Chase Lounge. And I'm like, really? Because I've been looking for one of those for my room. And I'm like, but I don't like that one. She's like, oh, I do. I'm like, right. Because we were like, oh my God, we like the same thing. And then I was like, yeah, but not that specific one. And it was like, right. So we like the same idea, the same concept, but when it comes to more details, it really is totally different.
And I love, Gary started this conversation about looking for the similarities instead of the differences, because we're taught to look for the differences and then separate because of them. And he's like, I don't look for the differences, I look for the similarities. He's like, and that's what actually makes his and Dane's relationship works, is the similarities. They're completely different people, but they have the energetics are similar. Like they're creating similar things in the world. And that's the thing that just keeps coming back.
And their humor is fucked up and similar.
They have similar taste in keeping the house neat. You know, I mean, there's things that you know, need to be like, they need to work. And everything else can be completely different. And that has really helped me a lot, because I was taught to look for differences and use those to judge and separate. And so that's another facet to all this for me. Anyway, we could keep talking for 5 hours probably.
Yeah. And
Yeah, you said there was nothing to talk about.
I should be better than
And in the meanwhile, while all this is going on in the past week, we're creating, well, we're in a creation of a class right here in the House of Chaos. And it's going to be Stephen and Chatissa Bowman in the house, literally.
Yeah,
Literally.
That's why we were looking for furniture, because we actually moved it. We were in a venue and then we were live streaming and then we couldn't stream it from the venue. And we tried looking for a different venue and everything was like, blah. And then
to our house. So we're getting a bunch of party furniture, and like we're gonna make this house
limousines. But it really was like, okay, we kind of have a house that's a mansion, and it has more of that energy that we're looking for a venue than any venue actually does. So it was like, well, that's kind of silly. So ta-da, it all changed.
Yay.
But again, that's like, you know, even that was we were both aware that it had to shift and it had to be done. And then we came together and it was like, oh, and then an idea popped up and it was so easy. But it is that, like we were talking about that earlier too, with the creation of the house. And it's like, when the time is there and you choose according, like you choose with the energy, then things show up so easy. So easy.
So come to Vancouver. And
Or stream it online.
if you won't make it to Vancouver, we've created a website that's going to stream it with beautifully engineered video and audio.
John happens to be doing all of that.
Yeah, can you tell John's actually running the live stream?
Very excited, and it is very easy. So, in private message any of us. Cool.
Awesome. And if you just jumped on and you missed the beginning, watch the video again. It's actually pretty cool. And there's some pretty cool bits in there that you might take something home.
All right, you guys. We'll see all y'all who are watching next week, and thank you for hanging with us.
Thanks for jumping on.
Bye.
Bye, guys.